What's up everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to make a kind of easy but really cool looking no-bake cheesecake, and I'm getting this idea from the Cooking Tree where they made a kind of layered strawberry cheesecake, but I'm going to try to attempt to make it a blueberry version. So I'll link their channel down below, but with that being said, let's dive into this recipe. Alright everybody, let's go ahead and make this really awesome no-bake blueberry cheesecake. First, we are going to grab a small saucepan and add in 250 grams of blueberries plus 50 grams of granulated sugar. Now we're going to take our saucepan and set it over medium heat and crush up these blueberries with a spoon. While these blueberries are heating up on the stove, we can tackle our crust. So we're going to grab, for this I am using 80 grams of shortbread cookies, and I'm just going to process these in my food processor. You can definitely put these in a bag and kind of break them up with a rolling pin. Now you're going to need to grab a cake pan with a removable bottom. This one has a little clamp and the bottom just pops right out. So this is perfect. So this is where I realized I had an issue. Once I went to check the recipe, when I was this deep into making my cake, I realized that my pan was not being covered by the cookies and I needed much more cookies to cover the bottom. So originally I was supposed to add in 80 grams of melted butter, but I kind of had to keep crushing up cookies and adding melted butter until I got a crust that was thick enough to be cut and hold together in the bottom of this pan. Once I had all of my cookies in the bottom and I felt like it was going to make a thick enough crust, I just flattened it out. Now this also posed another problem. This was not going to make the 5-layer really nice looking cheesecake that I saw from Cooking Tree. I was going to have to make either less layers or just one layer because the batter is going to spread out much more in this larger pan. This is how my cake was supposed to look, and I will definitely link their channel down below with all the right measurements and the correct size pan. That way you can make it look like this, but keep following along with my video. I tried to bounce back from this failure. Alright, back to the crust. We're going to set this in the freezer for a few minutes to harden up and set. Now we can check on our blueberries. They're nice and bubbly, so we're going to add in 5 grams of lemon juice. This is going to help thicken these up into almost a jam. So stir that in and let it cook down for a few more minutes until your blueberries are nice and broken down. Once these blueberries have broken down, we're going to strain them through a fine mesh sieve and get out all of the seeds and kind of clumpy bits. Obviously a few are going to come through, but we want to make a puree out of this. So strain it through and you'll be good to go. Now I'm going to set this in the refrigerator to cool while we tackle the cheesecake portion of our cheesecake. To a large mixing bowl, you want to go ahead and add in 350 grams of cream cheese. Be sure that this stuff is nice and softened, that way you can mix all of your ingredients in well. Next, add in 50 grams of sugar and 3 grams of vanilla extract. Whisk all of that together so it is thoroughly combined. Next, add in 7 grams of lemon juice, and once again we're just going to whisk that together to combine our ingredients. Now we're going to take 3 tablespoons of water in a separate cup. Heat that up in the microwave for 10 seconds and add in 7 grams of gelatin powder. This is where the no-bake portion of our cheesecake comes in. This will prevent our cheesecake from running everywhere and hold everything together. So go ahead and add in all of your gelatin and whisk that together. Now that our blueberry puree has become cool, we're going to add this to our mixture and mix this in. Alright, this portion of our filling is done, so we're going to set this in the refrigerator. In the meantime, we do need to make some whipped cream, so we're going to be adding in 200 grams of heavy whipping cream to a stand mixer. And you're going to mix this on high until you get nice soft peaks. You don't want to mix this too much or it will be really whipped cream, just until you get nice soft peaks like you see there. Alright, now we can get our other mixture out of the refrigerator and add this soft peak whipped cream to our mixture. And you're just going to slowly whisk this in. Once this is finally mixed in, we can construct our no-bake cheesecake. So I'm grabbing a separate bowl and tearing it and weighing out my mixture. And I'm going to divide this into 3 layers. Since my cake pan is bigger, I want to have visible layers on this cheesecake. So I am going to divide this batter weight by 3. And each time I'm going to add 1/3 of my batter. So I've got my crust out of the refrigerator and I'm going to add this first layer. Now I'm just going to spread this evenly and then I'm going to place this in the freezer for about 15 minutes to set this first layer. In the meantime, I do need to add some food coloring to the remainder of my mixture. So I'm adding in equal drops of blue and red food coloring until I get a noticeably darker shade of purple. I would actually recommend going pretty heavy here. That way you get a lighter layer at the beginning where you added nothing, then this next layer, and then double that for the final layer. That way you get some really distinctive colors. So after 15 minutes, I'm simply adding in the second layer and flattening it out just as I did the first time. I found using this dough card or bench scraper is very helpful to smooth things out. So that went back in the freezer for 15 more minutes and we can make the final layer. So once again, I'm adding in more blue and red food coloring to get a darker shade of purple. Go ahead and whisk that together to thoroughly combine those colors and you're left with a nice deep darker purple color. I'm taking my pan out of the refrigerator. Now I'm adding the final layer, smoothing that out. Then I put this in the freezer for 15 more minutes and now I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, and you want this to sit in your refrigerator for at least 2 hours. I let mine sit overnight to be sure that it's set up nicely. This film is just going to prevent the top from getting sticky or any weird films from forming on the top. Alright, it's the next morning and I'm taking my pan out of the refrigerator. And finally, for the big reveal, I'm opening my cake pan and watch me as I try to juggle this thing out of the pan with only one available hand. Alright, I know it's a little bit depressing looking, but we got 2 distinctive layers, but let's touch this up a little bit. This cake is looking a little thin, but I think we can decorate it a little bit with some leftover blueberries. And look at that, he doesn't look half bad. Obviously, since I used the amount of filling that was originally supposed to be for a smaller cake pan, this cheesecake turned out a little bit thin, but I still think it looks okay. And we can touch it up a little bit by adding a few mint leaves to the top. And there are a couple of takeaways from this cake. One, be sure you follow the instructions whenever you're baking. This is why I like cooking more. And the second is things don't always turn out the way that you want them to, but in spite of that, you have to make the best of it and you can end up with a pretty good cake just like this one. So you're obviously getting a 2-for-1 here. You get a YouTube recipe and a really bad motivational speech going on here. So for that, all I ask is you drop a like on the channel, and if you like my channel, consider subscribing because I try to cook good food here every single week. I do mess up sometimes, but that's okay. Unfortunately, my camera battery did die, so I couldn't film myself actually eating the cake, but I did try it and it was very good. I do think it would have been better for it to have had a little bit more of a blueberry flavor. So I think next time I would have added just a little bit more of the blueberry puree into it. And also, as you can see, this cake looked nothing like what I originally wanted it to, and that was my fault for not using the correct size pan. I should have used a pan that was roughly 6 inches in diameter versus 9 inches, and obviously if you are baking something and you don't use the right equipment or ingredient amounts, it's not going to turn out exactly right. But I tried to make it look as good as possible. I think we got 2 distinct layers out of this cheesecake. I was shooting for 5 originally, but obviously with a wider surface area, the batter is going to spread out a lot more, so I tried to make it look as best as I could. It still tasted really good and I'm still proud of it, but a lot of time and effort went into making this video, so please drop a like on it and consider subscribing. I cook good food here every single week, so with that being said, I will see you all on the next one.